Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, as you know that we've started a series on political geography and today we are conducting yet another lecture in the same series. In today's lecture, we will try to understand the concept of geopolitics and geostrategy. In this, we will try to see various theories and concepts in geopolitics and geostrategy. To discuss this topic, we have with us our subject expert Dr. Asmita Bakshi. Dr. Bakshi is an expert on political geography. Without further ado, I would like to welcome ma'am to our studios and request her to start the lecture. Welcome ma'am.
Thank you, Amrit. Welcome students. As you know that this lecture is on geopolitics and geostrategy and is a part of ongoing lecture series on political geography. Geopolitics is very important and essential ingredient of political geography study of any area. We cannot overlook the geopolitics part of any state. So in this lecture we would be studying to understand the concept and differences between the term geopolitics and geostrategy by looking at the concept in detail of geopolitics and geostrategy. We would also trace the development in the field of geopolitics through various definitions given by various scholars from time to time. Additionally, we would be looking at various concepts and theories related to geopolitics and geostrategy. So, before going further, let's understand the geopolitics and where it fits into geographical study of any area. As we know that geography as a discipline has two major branches like physical geography and human geography. Further, these two subdisciplines have many sub-branches like human geography has sub-branches, for example, population studies, economic geography, settlement geography, etc. And political geography is one of the sub-branches of human geography. And geopolitics fits in the domain of political geography. So, if we look at the geopolitics as a term, then it is made up of two terms like geo and politics, where geo stands for space and geography. Space in terms of territory or soil or occupying any territory or defined territory, and politics in terms of influence and domination and addition with international relations. So in this way we can say that geopolitics is integrated study of any geographical aspect of any state in addition with its power relations and international relations with other countries. So, as a concept, geopolitics is concerned with how geographical factor of any particular state, including its territory, population, strategic location and natural resources, as modified by economic and technological advancement, affect the relations between states and the struggle for world domination. It also helps us to understand the arrangement and forces that transforming the world map. So, as a concept, geopolitics is related to how any geographic characteristic of any particular state affects its foreign policy or interaction with other countries. So, there are many definitions given by various scholars since the beginning of since the evolution of the concepts, and it all the definition also denotes or shows us the development in the discourse, how the definitions and concepts of geopolitics has changed over a period of time. So let's have a look on some of the major definitions given by various scholars from time to time. So the first definition was given by Rudolf Schellen. He was the one who coined the term first in 1899. He defined the term geopolitics as a geographical organism or phenomena in space. So this definition concentrates on two major elements that are crucial within the concept of geopolitics, that is power and space. The central role for any state as only powerful entity is very typical and for the definition of Schellen. The second definition was given by Karl Haushofer. He defined the term as a new national science of the state as a doctrine on the spatial determination of all political processes based on the broad foundation of geography, especially of political geography. Here, with this definition, we find that Haushofer considers the importance of political geography while study for geopolitics. Additionally, the third major definition was given by Sir Halford Mackinder, and he considers the geographical distribution of land and water on the Earth's surface and its influence on the geopolitics or the determinant as a major determinant for power. So, he defined the term as the influence of geography upon politics, how distance and terrain and climate affect the affairs of a state and men. Because of geography, for example, Athens was a sea empire, whereas Sparta was a land power. Another definition was given in late 1990s. So, in that time, Peter Taylor wrote that the revival of geopolitics has taken place in three ways. On the first form, he defines the term as a popular term for describing global rivalries in the world politics. And in the second form, he defines the term as a new and more critical geopolitics. Critical histogeographical studies of past geopolitics have been a necessary component of this geographer's geopolitics. And on the third form, he says geopolitics is associated with the neo-conservative pro-military lobby which have added geopolitical arguments to their Cold War scenarios. Such studies talk of geopolitical imperatives and treat geography as a permanent factor that all strategic thinking must revolve around. In this way, Peter Taylor relates geopolitics to international relations by saying geopolitics has generally been a part of realist tradition of international relations. In the same way, D. Blige also defined the term as the interplay among geography, power, politics and international relations. And in the starting of 21st century, the concept has experienced a major development when S.B. Cohen has defined the term as the analysis of the interaction between, on the one hand, geographical setting and perspective, and on the other hand, political processes. Both geographical setting and political process are dynamic and each influences and is influenced by each other. Geopolitics addresses the consequence of this interaction. In this way, S.B. Cohen focuses on dynamic interaction between power and space. In the same line, Colin Flint has defined the term as the struggle over the control of space and places focuses on power. In the 19th and early 20th century geopolitical practices, power was seen simply as a relative power of countries in foreign affairs. In the late 20th century, definitions of power were dominated by a focus on a country's ability to wage war and other countries. However, recent discussion of power have become more sophisticated, and thus Colin Flint noted that power has always had a central role in the definitions, although its meaning has been still subject to discussion. So, the most recent development in the geopolitical studies is critical geopolitics. And the term geopolitics you must be heard in earlier lecture, and you have already understood the term. In this session, we would be talking on just classical theories and classical concept of geopolitics. But the definition we need to mention here of the founder of critical geopolitics, that is Gerald O'Toole, he defined the term as geopolitics is discourse about the word politics, which a particular emphasis on the state competition and geographical dimensions of power. So these are some definitions given by major geopoliticians over a period of time. If we analyze and see these definitions, then we can draw some concluding lines about geopolitics and its trends of development. We find that since the evolution of the concept geopolitics by the end of the 19th century, power and space have played a crucial role in the definition of geopolitics. Initially, the definitions of geopolitics included only the state as a powerful entity, and current definitions also appreciate the power of other entities that refers to critical geopolitics. Additionally, while some geopolitical theorists desire and pretend to be capable of analytical objectivity, and the most important thing, whether geopolitics is the part of international relations or not, it is subject to further discussion and we cannot comment on that. So let's have a look how the concept have evolved. The concept, I have already mentioned that concept has evolved in the late 19th centuries when geographers and other thinkers often sought to analyze, explain and understand the ongoing transformation of finite spaces on the world. So these were there were some major factors which led these geographers or thinkers to do so. So these factors include the consolidation of modern state system with the unification of Germany and Italy, the expansion of European imperialism to a new height, the appearance of Japan and the US as a new imperialist power on the margins of Europe spheres of interest, and rapid growth of population and consequent pressure on the resources. So these were some factors which led the emergence of geopolitics discourse in the geographical studies. So all the scholars and the geopolitical theorists came from generally two schools of geopolitical thought. One school is called German school that explain. They generally provide explanation why certain states are powerful and how to become powerful, what to be done to become powerful in a world political scenarios. This school generally follows environmental deterministic approach and follows social Darwinism, and the major scholar in this school includes Friedrich Hegel, Schelling, Haushofer, etc. Another school is called British or American school that offers strategic advice for states and explain why countries interact to a certain manner at global scale and why they do so. It generally recommends policy suggestions on the basis of geographical facts, and the theories from this school are generally called geostrategic theories. So here we find there are two terms called geopolitics and geostrategies. So before going further, let's have a look what is the difference and what the term geostrategy mean. As I have already mentioned, then geopolitics is all about the effect of geography of any state on its international politics, on its foreign policy, whereas geopolitics is related to the strategic use of geopolitical understanding, or we can say that geostrategy is geographic direction of a state's foreign policy. So there are we can divide scholars in two major categories, is geopolitical thinker and geostrategic thinker. So geopolitical thinkers include Friedrich Hegel, Rudolf Schelling, Karl Haushofer, which comes under geopolitics also and geostrategy also. And major geostrategic thinkers are Alfred Thermahan and Halford J. Mackinder, Nicholas J. Spykman, Alexander D. Seversky, and so on. So let's start by looking at the concept given by Friedrich Rebel. Friedrich Rebel was a student of Karl Ritter and generally known as a father of political geography. His major work was in geography is political geography, and he studied the behavior of states in a more deterministic manner, and he propounded several theories like theory or organic state theory, and two concepts like Lebensraum and autarky. Lebensraum is related to the space or we can say a living space into which any state can expand their territory, and autarky is related to self-sufficiency or independence. So let's have a look on the theory given by Friedrich Rebel, that is organic state theory. In this theory, Rebel assumes any state as an organism conforming to natural laws and forced to grow and expand into new territories in order to secure resources needed for survival. To him, state as a biological organism whose life cycle extends from birth through maturity and ultimately decline and death. To prolong its existence, the state requires nourishment. Nourishment in terms of, not in terms of food, but in terms of acquisition of territory of less powerful neighboring competitors. So this concept justified during 1930s just with the Nazi expansion, and Adolf Hitler used this theory to invade surrounding countries and build German nationalism. And on that time, the concept of geopolitics had a negative connotation, but now it is in a positive manner. It is being used. The next scholar is Rudolf Schellen. He is a Swedish scholar, but is a student of Rebel and influenced by his organic state theory, and he is the only who elaborated the organic state theory in a more explanatory manner and coined the term geopolitics first time in 1899. In his work, he identified there must be 5 organs that any state must have to become powerful, and that organs he named Kratopolitik, that denotes for government structure, Demopolitik, that stands for population structure, Sociopolitik, that is state for is social structure, Ociopolitik, that stands for physical structure of any state, and Geopolitik for political structure of any state. And the Schellenian concept of concentration of power gave a quasi-scientific justification to the rights of strong states to expand by all means possible. And this would be the result of natural law, that is survival of the fittest given by Darwin. So, in the work, Schellen also identified various concepts, like the first concept is Reich, and it is similar to the concept given by Rebel Lebensraum, that is living space or living room or space, and the establishment of strategic military space that could be defended by a strong military and overseen by a centralized governmental body. The next concept given by Schellen is Volk, which referred to the racial construction of a state revolving around a specific ethnic group or exclusive to other groups. It is generally related to the population characteristics of any country. Haushalт is another concept given by Schellen, which supports the Rebel's autarky concept, which is based on occupation and control of land. Gesellschaft is the fourth concept given by Schellen, which made reference to the cultural aspect of a state and its people. In this area, he attributed far more significance to culture as an organizing factor in the statehood than did Redgel as his teacher. So, these are the concepts given by Schelling as a student of Redgel. So, the next major contributor in the area of geopolitics was Journal Karl Haushofer. Haushofer was a German journal and geopoliticians. He was very much influenced by the German geopolitics given by Schelling, Redgel, etc. And the most experts are today the most experts are reducing the concept of German geopolitics to the concept given by Haushofer only. Haushofer was very much influenced by the geopolitician concepts in addition with his extensive travel around Asia and the information gathered during the travel. Haushofer again defined the term geopolitics in 1935 as the duty to safeguard the right to soil and to the land in the widest sense, not only in the land within the frontier of the Reich, but also the right to the more extensive Volk and cultural land. In the same way that Schelling did, he also used all these terms like Reich, Volk and cultural land. So, he followed the footsteps of Redgel in a sense of organic state theory, or as a concept of state as a living organism. And Schelling by adopting his concepts like Volk and Reich, and Haushofer was interested in a variety of important geopolitical concepts such as frontiers, Lebensraum and autarky. And he also defined Lebensraum in much the same manner as Redgel or Schelling did, and he also referred the term as the need of any developing country for expansion into a new or neighboring territory. The major contribution of Haushofer in the geopolitical studies was the introduction of the concept of pan-region. Pan-region is generally a region of any state's dominance or influence area in terms of economy, in terms of political characteristics and in terms of cultural influence. That area, the pan region includes all those areas of influence which extend beyond the country's political boundary. If we see the definition of pan region, then we find that pan region is a geographic region or state's sphere of economic, political and cultural influence extending beyond the state's border. For example, pan-region of USA includes regions both bordering USA and its close neighbor including Canada, Mexico and main South American states. Haushofer also identified the major contribution in geostrategic point of view is to identification of or division of world into three distinct pan regions. The first region include the influence area of USA, that includes North or South American region, Anglo-American or Latin American region. The second region is Germany, influence area of Germany, that includes Europe, Africa, Western Asia. And the third region of influence of Japan, that includes India, Japan, Southeast Asia and extreme east part of the world. So these are the some pan region which were divided by Karl Haushofer, And he also said that these region or state could expect their region to develop economic, political alliance and their leading state as well as yield to sanction and major cultural designations. So, these areas or these regions have some certain leading states. Leading states are those states which have influence in political, economic or cultural influence on the region covered by that particular state. So, in the first region, the leading state is USA. In the second region, the leading state is Germany, and in the third region, the leading state is Japan. So, these are the concepts that have been given by Haushofer. And here I would like to tell you that there are the three experts I have mentioned, three scholars I have mentioned, that is Friedrich Rätzel, Rudolf Schellen and Karl Haushofer. Friedrich Rätzel and both of all the three scholars belongs to German school of geopolitical thought, where the earlier two scholars mainly worked in the area of geopolitics. They did not give any strategic policy for any state to become a world power. They just conceptualized the concept of geopolitics and how what any country can do to enhance their geopolitical power in terms of their survival on the international politics. But Haushofer has also provided some strategic policy formation, some policy forward politics to which any state can go further to maximize their power. So, in this way, Haushofer comes under geopolitical concept category also and geostrategic category also. So, in this way, these scholars are very important contributor in the development of geopolitical thoughts. So, here now I would like to conclude this session by summarizing this session. In this session, we have understood the concept of geopolitics and geostrategy, their differences, and we also understood how the term geopolitics has evolved, what were the factors and how it develops over a period of time through various definitions given by various scholars since the evolution of the term in 1899 or even before. What were the concepts given by the Friedrich Rätzel, who was known as the father of political geography. And we also understood in detail the concept given by German geopoliticians like Friedrich Rätzel, Rudolf Schellen and Karl Haushofer. So, with this I would like to end this session. Thank you. Welcome students. In this session we would be talking about some theories related to geostrategy. But before starting this session we would be to revise what we had studied in the earlier session. In the earlier session we had studied the concept of geopolitics, and we understood the development of geopolitics through various definitions and concepts, and we also learned the concepts given by various geopoliticians like Schellen and Haushofer. And in this session, all these theories related to geopolitics in that session, and in this session we would be talking about particularly on the theories given in terms of geostrategy. So, in this session we would be taking up the sea power theory given by A.T. Mahan, the heartland theory given by Hafod Mackinder, and rimland theory given by Spikeman. So, we would also assessing the difference and major concepts in these definitions. So, let's start the theory taken up to Sir Alfred Thayer Mahan. Mahan was an American naval officer. He emphasized the importance of sea power as a major tool for geopolitical studies, and he emphasized the sea power, and he claimed that sea power is very necessary to facilitate trade and peaceful commerce, and also put emphasis to build a strong navy for any country to become a sea power. And he also claimed, by saying all this, he claimed that development of a strong navy was an essential ingredient to a powerful state, and it was all based on the country's location. Most power would be held by a country with accessible relative location and connected with a long coastline and good harbor is the most important for any country to become sea power. He also gave example of Germany and Russia. As Germany has a long coastline, Russia is also a long coastline, so they have the potential to become a sea power or develop their strong navy to facilitate their army or military to become a powerful in relation to other states. He also contended that the mastery of commercial activities that allied on seaborne transportation was critical not only in times of war but also in times of peace. He felt that any country building a fleet that could destroy an enemy's main force in a single battle would become a hegemonic state. By saying this, he meant that a country who has the strong navy or strong sea power would be able, in a peacetime, would be able to do all the peaceful commerce and will become powerful economically, and while the wartime he can defend their territory from the conflicting enemies. So, any country need to have a strong sea power to defend their territory. So, he also identified some principles or some factors that are necessary, or we can say essential, for any country to have in order to enhance their sea power. These countries these factors include geographical position or location of any state. For example, by saying this factor, we can say that if a country has a long coastline or coastline with ocean or sea, and if yes, then water are interconnected or not. In that sense, he just tried to say that if water are interconnected, that it would be easier to navigate, and it can contribute to strong navy building for that country. And the second factor is the conformation of a state or the nature of its coasts. By saying this factor, he meant that whether the coastline has any harbor, estuaries or inlets or not, because it also ultimate influences affect a country's navy position or harbor positions. And the third factor is the extent of territory, by which he meant the length of country's coastline and its defensibility against invasion. The fourth factor is all about population, the size of population. He said the size of population because a population country can build a strong navy and maintain it like the way it was built. And the fifth important factor is national character of a state, in which he included the population's attitude for seafaring and commerce, whether the populations of any particular state is risk taking or not, how friendly they are to take risk for any commercial activities. And the sixth and the most important factor is the character and policy of the government. By saying this, he meant whether the government policies are taking advantages from the opportunities offered by the environment and the population to promote sea power. So, if the government policy is favorable to develop sea power, that would be beneficial for any country to build their strong navy and the sea power. By giving these concepts, he also identified some regions of influence, some potential power regions and their influential areas over the world. So let's have a look on that. He identified the two allied land power, that is Russian Empire, where you can see in the dark red area Russian Empire, and the France. And the area which is in light red shade and portion above all the Asian portion above the 40th latitude will come under the influence of Russian land power. And he has also identified the four allied sea power regions, that is Great Britain, German Empire, Japan, and United States. And he also identified influence of these sea power, influence areas of these sea power, that is all the areas below 30-degree latitude in the Asia. Here you can see these area, it is generally Southeast Asian countries, and he identified some key waterways which can contribute for any country to become a sea power, and it can contribute to navigate more easily, like Suez Canal, Panama Canal, and Strait of Gibraltar and Baltic. So these are some concepts and areas identified A.T. Mahan which can contribute to for any country to become a sea power. And the next major important scholar is Sir Halford Mackinder. Unlike A.T. Mahan concept about sea power, Mackinder has favored the idea of land power. He was a British geostrategist and propounded his ideas in favor of land power in contrast to A.T. Mahan. His ideas were basically based on the geographical distribution of land mass and water bodies on the earth. And he said in very simplistic manner that history is essentially a struggle between the land and sea power. Initially he formed his ideas about land power in 1904, and then he modified the idea later in two times, one in 1990 and the second time in 1943, based on the current geostrategic or geopolitical scenarios of the world. So let's have a look on his initial idea. He presented his geopolitical idea about world to Royal Geographical Society in 1904, in which he identified a region called Word Island. He called Word Island, that is a region of huge continuous landmass that includes Europe, Asia and Africa. Here you can see in this small map that Asia, Europe and Africa are the continents which are joined all together. He called that area as a Word Island, and also he envisioned all these Word Island into 3 tiers. The first tier is he called pivot area, which is the internal most part of this Word Island, and it is a region which extends from the river Volga in the west to eastern Siberia in the east and the Himalaya in related mountain in the south of the Arctic in the north. And the second tier consists of the outer layer or we can say the margin of pivot area, the area which he called the inner or marginal crescent. It is an arc coastal land categorized by rivers draining into navigable seas. Additionally, this area consists of the whole Eurasian landmass outside the pivot area, including Europe to west of the Ural, Southwest Asia, outside the Iranian upland, India, Southeast Asia and the far east part of the world. Additionally, the third tier consists of continents of North and South America, Australia, Africa, south of Sahara, the islands of Great Britain and Japan. To this area he called outer or insular crescent. So these are the 3 tiers of Mackinder's theory. This is pivot area, this is inner or marginal crescent, and these large area covered under outer and insular crescent. He also gave some reasons why pivot area is so much important strategically. He gave the reasons like the north, central and western part of pivot area was a great lowland connected with the East European plains through the East European corridor. The region has a great potential for transport development like railways that would redress the power balance back in the favor of land-based power. And that it would also let this region to become independent in terms of economy and in terms of their military activities. And only the Baltic Sea, he identified that only the Baltic Sea and Black Sea could form avenues for sea power penetration into these regions, and the area contained a substantial resource base for capable of power of world significance. So these are some regions for strategic importance of pivot area. In 1904, he identified himself that under prevailing balance of power erstwhile, Soviet Union was not strong enough to convert this possibility of invincibility to a reality, and Mackinder envisaged the 2 possible ways in which this region can be invaded. First, if the Germany was militarily or economically powerful, entered into an alliance with Soviet Union, and the second condition he had given is if China organized by Japanese conquered the Russian Empire, it might then constitute a yellow peril to the world's freedom just because they would add an oceanic frontage to the resources and of a great continent and advantages as yet denied to a Russian tenant of private area. So these consideration of Mackinder led the modification in his concept of pivot area and its invincibility. So he modified his concept later in 1990. He all accumulated his concepts in an article named The Democratic Ideals and Reality in 1990, in which he changed the name of pivot area to Heartland. And there were some factors which contributed for this modification, like he saw Russian Empire had collapsed in 1970s and this new communist ruler had made peace with Germany and almost on her own terms. And during World War I, the British Navy could not force entry into the Black Sea and was also denied entry to the Baltic Sea and Germans who had laid mines into these regions. The third region was the German armies had advanced through the steppe corridor in the southwest Russia. All these factors forced Mackinder to re-emphasize the strategic importance of East European gate of entry to Heartland for any outside power, and thus he asserted his universal statement about Heartland. He said, "He who ruled East Europe commands the heartland, who rules the heartland commands the world island, and who rules the world island rules the world." So here you can see easily the area of earlier area of pivot region which were proposed in 1904 and the modified area demarcated by dotted line in 1994, which is called Heartland. So, and later with all these modifications, he again modified his all the concept during the World War II, and he accumulated again all the concepts into an article and modified the earlier given concepts in an article like named The Round Word and the Winning of Peace, which was written in 1943. In that modification, many changes had occurred in the given concept, but the major changes was in the form of the evolution of the concept of Midland Basin, and the concept was given to power vacuum to power center, the power shift to power vacuum to power center. In the first concept, the concept of Midland Basin, Mackinder experienced that during the World War II, USA and the Western European countries are very similar to one another, both in a term of economically, culturally, and they are very well linked together by supported sea routes and communication. So they can easily come together as a single community. So Mackinder called this region Midland Basin, that includes the Northern Atlantic Ocean and its the Northern Atlantic Ocean and eastern part of USA and western part of Europe continent. So he also saw that this Midland Basin can provide an effective counterbalance to the world's emerging power potential, what he called heartland. So this was the concept, and again he shift his concept to power vacuum to power center by saying that as a result of World War II, the politico-geographic picture of the world had changed drastically. The war and the shattering defeat of Germany had turned the heartland region from power vacuum to power center, and he moved heartland east of the Yenisei River and renamed it as Lenaland. So in this way, Mackinder now visualized that the existence of two great power centers in the world, which is the Midland Basin and the Lena Land. Both of the region were surrounded or insulated by the girdle of deserts like Sahara Desert, Mongolian Desert, and Arabian Desert, etc. So these insulated region of vacant land space would break social continuity between these communities and should prevent the spread of conflict in future. So these are the major concepts and thesis given by Halford J. Mackinder, and he was perhaps the most influential scholar in the area of geopolitical discourse, but he has also often been criticized for both of his facts and his views. So let's have a look on what basis he has been criticized. First, let's have a look on the facts about heartland, of which he has overlooked and for which he has been criticized. The first fact is the heartland portrayed. What he had portrayed heartland was on the Mercator projection, which distorted the size and showed unlimited expanse of permanent ice to the north of the heartland, whereas the heartland lies face to face with northern American continent across the Arctic, while seen on the azimuthal polar projection. The second point is heartland was a region of permanent difficulty, having extremes of climate and frozen soil, and Mackinder overlooked this fact. Mackinder also took very simplistic view of the development of railways into the heartland area and overtones the urgency that never materialized. He has also some views on the particular region of heartland which is not proven true, and for example he oversimplified history in a very deterministic manner as a simple struggle between land and sea power. He did not take into consideration of future rise of USA as a major international power. He did not foresee the rise of aircraft as a major military weapon. He did not foresee nuclear deterrence and intercontinental ballistic missiles. And the last, he failed to explain the apparent contradiction between his thesis of power and possessor of heartland and relative weakness of Soviet Union until World War II. So these were the concepts given by Halford J. Mackinder, and the next major scholar is Nicholas Spikeman. Unlike Mahan, who propounded the theory of sea power, and Mackinder, who propounded the theory of land power, Spikeman was in the favor of both sea power and land power. He propounded a theory that named Rimland theory, and he called the Mackinder's inner or marginal crescent as a rimland, and he saw that rimland was accessible to the sea and to interior regions also, and these continental margins of rimland contained dense population, abundance resources, and had controlling access of both at the sea and the continental interior. This region of rimland includes the region of European coastland, Arab Middle Eastern desert land, and Asiatic monsoon region, and Far East that includes Japan and other coastal countries. And he said that contrary to Mackinder's theory, he said that economically, politically and militarily, the northern half of the world always be more important than the southern half, and the location of states in the south or north of the equator would play a large role in the determining the significance of the state. Nicholas Spikeman also criticized or countered Mackinder's view by saying that the actual extent of arable land in the heartland was only a small part of the total area, and practice of agriculture was very difficult as claimed by Mackinder. It also presents some of the greatest obstacle to transport development which Mackinder had overlooked, and he countered the saying of Mackinder as who rules the East Europe commands the world island by saying who controls the rimland rules Eurasia, who rules Eurasia controls the destinies of the world. So, Mackinder divided the world into three major kind of states like landlocked states, island states and states that have both land and sea frontiers. Spikeman asserted that landlocked states usually face security problems from their immediate neighbors, and island states normally face potential pressure from other naval power if they are offshore islands like Great Britain or Japan. And he said for the state who have both land and sea frontiers, he said that they determine their security based on several factors, including the extent of their sea and land frontiers and the power potential of their immediate or nearby neighbors. So, these are some ideas which were propounded by Spikeman in terms of rimland, or we can say that land and sea power. He realized that the nation acted on the basis of their geography. Spikeman also realized that all states have a tendency to expand. This was true for Spikeman, that sea power and land powers that shift the balance of power would change the dynamics of geopolitics. Therefore, the heartland could not remain a constant seat of power, but power will ultimately shift towards the country who has both sea and land frontiers. So now let's have a look how Spikeman's view about the power relations and how Mackinder's view about power relations has changed, or what are the differences between Mackinder's and Spikeman's view of becoming a power, world power. So Mackinder asserts that Eastern Europe is destined to gain control of world due to its control of the heartland. In contrast, Spikeman said that the rimland states like Japan, Great Britain, China would likely to become sea power because their greater contact with the outside world. And Mackinder thought countries like Australia and the Americas were insignificant as they were not a part of world island. Therefore, they were not essential to world dominance. In contrast, Spikeman said that world as consisting of two great landmass, Eurasia and Northern America, and three islands, South America, in Africa and Australia. So, in this way, all these three scholars have propounded different theories altogether, like Mahan propounded theory in favor of sea power, Mackinder propounded theory in favor of land power, and Spikeman propounded theory of rimland theory, that is for both sea power and land power. And if we analyze all of these three theories, then we find the theory given by Spikeman is more relevant in the current geopolitical scenarios of the world. We cannot say only sea power will be sufficient, or we cannot say only land power will be sufficient, but we can say that both land power and sea power will be essential for any country to become powerful country in the world's geopolitical scenario. And with this, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you.
Dear friends, due to paucity of time, we have to stop our lecture here. On that note, we would like to thank Dr. Pakshi for coming to our show and delivering this wonderful lecture. And thank you, dear friends, for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.